A new executive order to take on ticket scalpers, and Kid Rock.
Look at the outfit.
I would buy that suit in a second.
He was in the Oval Office with POTUS.
Biden do news conferences like this, Peter? I don't think so.
He was never standing next to somebody who looked like they were about to be shot out of a cannon.
Kid Rock is going to be here to tell us about that, plus the dinner he had with Bill Maher and the president last night
Dun, 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 dun.
at the White House.
So exciting.
Yeah, he's the one who invited.
You know, there's no better example of the circus that occupies the White House than what Fox News is celebrating so that they don't have to focus on the fire Donald Trump is setting to the economy.
Maybe, though, what really happened today is that things have simply gotten too negative. BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, who writes an annual chairman's letter required reading for anyone in the markets, wrote some fateful words today. Quote, I hear it from nearly every client, nearly every leader, nearly every person I talk to. They're more anxious about the economy than any time in recent memory, end quote. I come back and say, I believe that. I believe that wholeheartedly. But let's think about what that really means for you and me. We have declining inflation, except the president's putting on inflationary tariffs. We have incredibly low unemployment, except where it's caused by the Trump administration. We have a market that was doing extremely well last year until the Trump administration sowed a level of uncertainty that I can't recall any time since, are you ready, Ski Daddy, Jimmy Carter, which is the last time people were really worried about inflation, about stagflation. I cannot think of another president in my lifetime who knocked down the stock market simply by opening his mouth than Jimmy Carter. Eureka, I have found him. So let's look at it this way. Everything about this economy is good. Everything, except one thing. We have a president who's very angry at everyone except Vladimir Putin. Oh, no, maybe even Vladimir Putin. And his wrath has made investors so downcast and so negative that people have just given up. They want nothing to do with stocks, nothing to do with this world, because they're sure the White House will keep laying on the tariffs that seem to be wiping out your wealth and my wealth.
It's like people didn't realize that when Trump campaigned on up being down and left being right on the effect of his tariff temper tantrum, that reality wouldn't eventually do its thing. It's got Trump lackeys acting like financial hardships are something to celebrate, since they've convinced gullible supporters to always praise the rest of their obvious lies.
95% of Montana's imported goods come from Canada, Mexico, and China. Is this going to hurt people in your state, you think?
There's absolutely going to be short-term pain. The president's been clear about that. Everyone has. I mean, if you're going to remodel your house to make it better in the end, it's going to be really annoying in the short term when your house is getting remodeled. And there's drywall dust everywhere, and there's workers in your living room. The reality is that remodel has got to happen in order to make things stronger and more stable on the back end.
You liken this to a remodel. Sometimes those take longer than you plan for. I mean, if you're an American and you're waiting to see, what does short-term pain mean? I mean, how long do you expect that to last?
I mean, we don't know. And of course, I'll add a lot of the media frustration with the uncertainty around President Trump's new
Not
economic
media,
strategy.
business uncertainty.
Oh, sure. But, you know, the media is helping with that. I mean, business uncertainty responds to public market sentiment. You know, there wasn't nearly as much pearl clutching when we had record inflation, record interest rates, record cost of good increases for middle-class families over the last 3.5 years.
Rookie meathead Senator Tim Sheehy wants you to listen to his ridiculous home remodel analogy that has no idea how long it'll take, but still expects you to stop clutching your pearls over them destroying your life. So now that you're in power, they don't care what their promises look like, even though they'll result in economic pain with absolutely no end in sight.
When you say a tax cut, how exactly is that going to work? If you're talking about credits for people who are buying new cars, those kinds of things, millions of Americans are not looking to buy new cars, but they are worried about the thousands that are estimated to turn up in their everyday costs for things because the tariff cost has to be passed on by these importers somewhere.
First of all, we're going to raise about $100 billion with the auto tariffs alone. What we're going to do is in the new tax bill that has to pass, it absolutely has to pass, we're going to provide tax benefits, tax credits to the people who buy American cars. This is a genius thing that President Trump promised on the campaign trail. So that's going to happen. In addition, the other tariffs are going to raise about $600 billion a year, about $6 trillion over a 10-year period. And we're going to have tax cuts. It's the biggest tax cut in American history for the middle class, for the blue-collar deplorables.
Peter Navarro doesn't do much listening. He just assumes that after Trump and Musk finish firing tons of people, which actually affects the jobs and economic outlook on people outside of those agencies that they're now shutting down, that people will celebrate the tax cuts that they're now planning to give to the richest again. You know, we already went through this in his first term.
But let me tell you where the average American is about this, and I know you said you want to reassure them, but our recent polling shows that people believe that tariffs on imports are going to make their products more expensive. 69% believe that, and they think that it's actually going to hurt the U.S. economy and hurt U.S. jobs. That's according to our polling. So what do you say to people who say, listen, we hired the president to make the economy better, to make things cheaper? They believe, the economists, the analysis that show these prices are going to show up somewhere. And President Trump himself has said there's going to be some disruption in the short term because of these tariffs.
Trusted Trump. We have the example from the first term. We know that we imposed historically high tariffs on China. We imposed aluminum and steel tariffs. We imposed on washing machines, on solar, and all we got out of that, Shannon, all we got out of that was prosperity and price stability. And the reason why we're not going to see inflation is because the foreigners are going to eat most of it. They have to. We're the biggest market in the world, Shannon, and they have to be here. They have to be here. And so they're going to cut their prices to absorb that.
You hear him? His answer was literally trust in Trump. That's the only argument that these guys ever have when they're confronted with facts about their destructive policies. But Republicans that don't get that free pass that MAGA minions give the president, they're hoping for some failures in this week's special elections to release them from the shackles that their spinelessness got them into in the first place. Politico's Jonathan Martin reported a pair of House Republicans, both of whom represent districts full of suburbanites, told me they're hoping Musk will soon start heading for the exits. One of the lawmakers said an April 1st massacre would be a beautiful thing because it would rouse congressional Republicans to do the damage Musk is doing and hand political capital to the lawmakers facing the most difficult races next year. They said there'll be 26 or so people watching Tuesday, and they'll decide how they want to be part of the team going forward when talking about the most endangered GOP lawmakers. Those lawmakers grasp the political damage Musk is doing because the shit he puts up on the internet about government spending or savings is wrong. But when it relates to their districts, it gets picked up by both their MAGA base and local media outlets, angering both blocks of voters. With fear of defeat, however, can come courage, or at least a willingness to tell Speaker Mike Johnson or Trump himself in private that something must be done about Musk. So think about that. These Republican legislators who can only anonymously talk about how their cowardice and fealty to Trump and Musk is destroying their political future, they're hoping that some losses will give them some leverage to beg Trump to stop Musk from f***ing things up some more. Not for their constituents, but for them. So they kiss Elon's ass in public, but somehow hope that the people that they tell to support his destruction of their lives will then see through their bullshit and then vote against them so that these weaklings won't have to stand up on their own. So why would Americans want this MAGA party full of big talking cowards that boasts empty promises, hoping that you see through it so that they can continue to refuse to represent you?
Polls show that the special election is within the margin of error. Wall Street Journal is reporting that Democrats say you are in full-blown panic mode, meaning Republicans. Why is that race so close?
Well, look, special elections are always different. Democrats obviously are highly motivated because they took a shellacking last November. They don't like DOJ. They don't like that Donald Trump is making America great again. And so they're going to the polls. As long as Republicans turn out in Congressional District 6 in Florida, but as long as Republican voters get to the polls and vote, they're going to be just fine. And I'll be remiss if I don't add the Supreme Court race going on in Wisconsin. Same dynamic. Democrat voters, because of their dramatic losses last November, they're motivated. Republican voters, we have to get to the polls. We got to show up and vote in Wisconsin.